Leadership matters a lot, but sometimes you and I can make it harder than it needs to be. Let's talk again about a small change that we can make that brings about a big difference right away. So, can I offer a little constructive criticism? Now think about how you responded to that question. If you were sitting across from me right here and I had poured you some wonderful bourbon and we sat back and I led with that question, can I offer you some constructive criticism? I know, even though we're friends, some of us are buddies, I know exactly what goes on neurologically when I lead with that question in your brain. Your brain goes into a fear mode or a threat mode in about 1.5 seconds. And your curiosity narrows and narrows and narrows, and you don't want to lean in and really listen. You want to kind of lean back and protect yourself. In just a nanosecond, then, your brain will shut off and go into full threat mode, even though I'm trying to be as kind and gentle and loving as I possibly can. When someone says, can I give you a little constructive criticism? You know it's not going to feel constructive. You know it's not going to be a little, and it's probably not just going to be criticism. So it's possible, it's probable actually, that you will not want to receive it very well. What is the problem with feedback? We get a lot of it. In fact, some of us feel like we have to ask for it all the time. What's the deal with feedback? You know, back in the day, it was a Tuesday, I think, back in the late 1970s, we fell in love in organizational life in Western culture with this idea of getting feedback and giving feedback. In fact, it became so popular that it was everywhere, and it started to work its way even into our human resource performance evaluation systems. It started working its way into everything, so that now today we are buried with feedback, all kinds of feedback. In fact, we have comment sections at the bottom of this YouTube. We really do want to know what you're thinking, but you know how it works. Some feedback we just turn off. Some feedback we don't listen to. Maybe you're even a part of one of those processes that we sometimes call 360-degree performance feedback evaluations. These 360-degree evaluations are designed for the workplace so that a whole bunch of people can stand around you in a circle and tell you what they think of you at work. If there's someone who genuinely tells you what they think of you at work following a bunch of questions and then anonymously adds their feedback to the pile, you'll probably not receive it very well. What actually happens? Now, we studied this, and a bunch of other folks studied this as well. We wondered, does feedback, organized or not, work? Does it actually work? We came to the understanding that, in fact, most of the time, the feedback that you and I go out and try to get, or are a part of a formal system, most of the time, that feedback doesn't work. It doesn't bring about any change. Well, it doesn't bring about any positive change. What it does is bring about a negative change. Why? What's going on? When we surveyed 1,200 people who were involved in giving and getting feedback and did a longitudinal study to figure out, did they make any changes as a result of this formal feedback structure, we discovered that 0 of them, 0, not 1 or 2 of them out of 1,200, 0 of them over a 2-year period made any positive sustained change that could be traced back to receiving formalized or even informalized but structured feedback in the workplace. What the heck is going on? We also accidentally discovered that they did make changes, but they were not positive changes. They found themselves, as a result of these formal feedback settings, less engaged in their teams. They found themselves less trusting of people. Because, imagine if you get anonymous feedback from 12 people and 11 of them say, you're amazing, that you could walk on water and turn water into wine. You're amazing, you're wonderful. But one person out of that dozen people says you kind of suck. You don't bring the right kind of donuts in every Friday when it's your turn to bring donuts in. You wonder who said it, don't you? Don't you wonder? Who was it? Who was it? Was it her? Was it her? Was it him? Don't you kind of wonder and kind of build it up in your mind? So now it's not just one person who thinks you are awful at bringing donuts in. It's everybody. And your trust in them starts to erode as a result of this kind of feedback. But I'm not actually saying here that we don't need feedback. I'm just saying that we can't force it. We can't, as a leader, if you're a leader or a manager or a supervisor or an influencer of people, you can't give feedback to people who don't want it, who are not open to it. They're not open to it from you, or they're not open to feedback in that area. In order for feedback to do any good at all, I have to actually want it. Typically, when someone says, like I did at the beginning of this conversation, can I give you some constructive criticism? What's going on in your mind is something like the sound of a toilet flushing. When I'm talking to you, all you're hearing is that, or a shredder, or maybe my words sound like a tennis shoe in a dryer. You're not really listening. Then when you do start to listen to this constructive criticism or feedback that I give you, we have discovered, will probably have a script playing in your mind, something like this. If you only knew what I knew, you wouldn't be saying that to me right now in that way. Flush. That's what you're thinking. If I give you unsolicited and uninformed feedback. So be very careful. Notice that next time somebody else gives you any kind of feedback that you did not ask for, notice how you respond. Maybe tonight, maybe it's your turn to cook dinner tonight. Maybe that's your job. Maybe you come home and you're surrounded by 2 or 3 or 4 little ankle biters, and it's your turn to actually kind of take care of dinner tonight. So you go home and you make dinner, and maybe it's spaghetti with that wonderful new vodka spaghetti sauce. Great stuff, by the way. Maybe that's what you made. You've added mushrooms and you've added chopped up beef, and it's the real spaghetti noodles, and it's warm and wonderful. Fresh grated Parmesan on the top of it. You're kind of salivating right now. Sounds good, doesn't it? Maybe you make that for dinner. You put it out, and somebody at the table says, there's a better way to make this spaghetti. You will instantly think something like, if you only knew what I knew, you wouldn't be telling me that. If you only knew that I didn't have time to go to the grocery store. If you only knew that last time you said you loved this, make it again. If you only knew how, of all the stuff we have in the cupboard, this is the most delightful to make. If you only knew that, you wouldn't be saying that. If you only knew how tired I was and irritated I was and how close I am to choking the life out of you right now, you wouldn't be saying that. You see that? Notice the next time someone gives you unsolicited feedback. Notice how you respond to it. This is a very natural thing because our brain, as you know, perceives everything immediately and instantaneously, although not necessarily accurately, through 2 big filters. Is this going to be a threat, or is this going to be a reward of some sort? Typically, feedback that comes unsolicited is put in the threat mode. We put it in that filter. I didn't ask for this. Who the heck are you? That kind of thing. Even people who are close to us. I didn't ask for this. Who the heck are you? And it's so fast that we go into the, if you only knew what I knew, you wouldn't be saying that mode. But, like I said a moment ago, I need feedback. I need it a lot. In fact, I can't be self-aware. I can't learn about the impact of my strengths on other people. I cannot be an effective, humble, curious leader if I don't get feedback. The most destructive leaders throughout history, some of them show up in books and show up on television, some of them are unwritten and unsung, are the ones who refused to receive feedback or surrounded themselves with people who only gave them positive feedback. Yes men and yes women around them. Very destructive place to be. So if you are a leader, it is so important that you are good at getting feedback. But how do we overcome this shredder in our brain, this defensiveness in our brain? We've learned a couple of things that I'd like to share with you as we've studied this and tried to apply it with ourselves and with other leaders over the years. First of all, remember that I need feedback. This feedback I call mirrors. So my first point is I need this feedback. I need mirrors. I need people to reflect me back to me. But I need them to reflect me back to me in such a way that they care more about me than they do about my feelings. So I've got to pick those mirrors carefully. As a leader, it's very important that you have people who care more about the mission and about you than they do about your feelings. And here's a big one. They need to care more about the mission, about you, than they do about your feelings. They also need to care less about themselves. So a person who's selfish cannot give me very good feedback about me or my impact as a leader. I can't trust that because they want something for themselves, and therefore their feedback is going to be a bit distorted. I get it. We can all be that way. I can be that way too. I just don't want that person in my life as a mirror to me, reflecting me and my impact back to me. I need a few mirrors, but not very many. So that's my first point. I need to have feedback. I need to know that I need it, and I need to pick feedback. My second point being from people who I trust. Now, these, what I call mirrors, are so important that when I go to them then, my third point is I need to get feedback from them about specific things. Not big general feedback. How am I doing as a leader? I mean, what good is that? That doesn't do any good. But, hey, we're working on this. What do you think? How did I do with that? Can you tell me what worked and what didn't work? Can you tell me something that I don't know? Can you tell me about my impact? So the feedback from the mirrors needs to be specific from the people that I picked. I'm also then not going to try to get, my third point, I'm not going to try to get feedback from people who don't have the expertise to give that feedback. Why would I ask for investment advice from someone who has failed in managing money? Why would I ask for relationship advice from someone who has left every relationship behind them a smoldering, burning, tired dumpster fire? Why would I ask for that? Why would I ask for advice on how to lead a high-performance team from somebody who's only functioned as an individual his or her entire life and never been a part of a team? Pick people who care more about the mission than they do about themselves, more about me than they do my feelings, and pick people who are experts in the area that I want feedback from. And go to them, here's my next point, go to them first. I don't want to wait to have someone come to me and give me feedback. There's a couple of people that will approach me with a couple of types, I guess, of folks who will approach me with feedback before it's asked. People who are so incredibly frustrated that they've been sitting on it for a long time and they're going to come at me with a wave of emotion. And I'm not going to be all that open to that. They're really frustrated. They've been thinking about it for a long time. Let me give you some feedback. I say, how long has that been a problem? And they say 2 years. What the holy hell? Why did you sit on it for 2 years instead of 2 hours? You should have come to me earlier. It's so distorted because they've waited for so long. I'm also not going to want feedback from the other end of the spectrum, from a person who instantly has feedback and gives it to me, and they've not thought about it for even an hour. They just want to instantly give that feedback. So I want to pick people who are experts, who've thought about it a little bit, and who understand that even their feedback gives some sort of impact to me that I really need. But I need to go to them. That is much more effective because when I do that, I'm going to ask them for feedback instead of them coming at me with feedback before I was ready. I'm going to go to them and ask for it. I'll be open. So here's my thought for you as we get ready to close this section out. Think of areas where you are wanting to grow or wanting to change, or projects you're trying, some area that's a frontier for you. And think, do I have mirrors in my life? Do I have people in my life, just one or two, doesn't take very many, who in that area can give me very good, kind, respectful, loving feedback about my strengths, my weaknesses, my drives, but mostly about my impact on other people. Then go to those people, ask them for feedback, give them time to prepare their thoughts, and then invite their feedback in. The most valuable feedback that I ever get is from people who fit that kind of description. And it's extremely valuable because I can do something about it. They're not giving me feedback about something that's in my rearview mirror 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that I can do nothing about. They're giving me feedback about something I can do something about right now. And then they care probably enough to link arms with me and help me make that kind of change. Feedback matters, but not from everybody. So there, someone says, can I give you a little constructive criticism? How about if you just say, nope. Quick story as we end. Working out in the gym. I have a back injury, occurred several years ago when I was on a horse. Now let me correct that. The horse was on me. And so therefore I have had some significant pain in my lower back for years. Comes and goes, comes and goes. So therefore when I work out, I need to work out carefully, precisely, and make sure that the muscles surrounding that injury are always as strong as they can possibly be. Or I'm that kind of guy who could reach over here and pick up the bourbon and just destroy my life for the next 2 weeks. So I'm very careful about how I work out. So I'm in the gym working out, lifting a massive amount of weight, and was doing a deadlift, which is one of the ways to strengthen my lower back. This guy came up. First thing I noticed about him was he's wearing those shoes that you can see your toes in. I don't even know what those shoes are called. Do you remember what those are called? They're like those toe shoes. They're like rubber, creepy shoes.
Crocs?
They're not. They're worse than Crocs. If there is anything on the planet worse than Crocs.
The Velcro slippers.
They're actual shoes, but you can see their toes in them. I mean, they cover their toes. It's like their shoes are wearing gloves.
Like Tevas.
Yeah, even worse than Tevas. Anyway, Drew will figure out what those are called, and he'll throw that in here. Oh, that's what they're called. Ugh. Yes, thank you for interrupting. It's very helpful. They creep me out. When I see those shoes, I go, oh, they creep me out. Anyway, first thing, I just finished a round of the deadlift and set it down. And I've been doing that deadlift for years, and they work really well for me. Set it down. This guy with those shoes comes up, and of course, that's what his toes look like. And he comes up and he says, you know what you ought to be doing here? I need to give you a little advice. I need to give you a little feedback. Can I give you some feedback? And I looked at him, and I gave him the up-down, saw his shoes, saw his face, and I said, nope. Not interested in your feedback. Well, and then he kept going with his feedback. And I said, first of all, you don't know me and you don't know what I'm trying to do here. So sorry, I'm not open to your feedback. He also caught me at a moment when I was pumped up with testosterone. So I might have been slightly less polite than I would have been under normal circumstances, but only slightly. So there's the story. Feedback only works if I'm willing to receive it. So as a leader, it's essential to me that I'm willing to receive it, but pick who you get feedback from really carefully, because it really makes a difference. Hey, I hope this was helpful to you. How about some feedback? If you liked it, hit the like button. If you liked it a lot, hit the subscribe button. And if you want us to tell you when the next one comes out, hit that bell. And you'll know when the next one's coming out. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Keep up the good work.